On the first month of his imprisonment, Fatha Sovan tried to take his own life. He was no fool. He knew what happened to people that were sent to the lowest cells of the Imperial dungeons. He'd sent people down there himself. Down here, he would rot, out of sight and out of mind. It was as good as an execution, just without the need for messy paperwork. There was no escape, and no means of appeal. He was as good as dead, and he resolved that he would exercise the last final liberty available to him by choosing the day and the means of his death. He could not hang himself. He had no access to rope and nothing to affix it to even if he did. His cell was a cold stone box with no window, no furniture and no drain, lit only by dim candlelight peeking through the bars of the door. The stones of the dungeon were warded to prevent prisoners from using magic, too. He was afforded a bucket to defecate in, and that was it. He could try and dash his own head on the rough-hewn stone, but the likelihood of instant death was not assured, and the possibility of lying crumpled on the floor for days in agony did not appeal. So it would be the bucket. He waited until it was full, and regarded the reeking container. Drowning oneself in one's own urine was not a dignified way to go, but at least he was free to make that choice. When he finally managed to work himself up to the task, he plunged in his head and made sure to close the handle over the back of his neck in order to make removing himself from it as difficult as possible. By a sheer coincidence that he would come to rue for years afterwards, the slop drudge was passing at that very moment to deliver food to the few prisoners down in that lonely wing of the dungeon. It was quiet down here, and as a result, the spluttering commotion emerging from his cell was immediately heard. By the end of the day, Fathis was still alive, and no longer even possessed a pot to piss in. For a long time, he wallowed in his despair. Months upon months went by as he curled up in a corner and waited to die, though of course he had no means of measuring the passage of time in his windowless chamber. Eventually, he began to hallucinate, starting with the voice of a prisoner in the cell next to his. He was well aware it wasn't real. Fathis was fully cognizant of what happens to people kept in total isolation for long enough. But he would engage the voice in conversation anyway. He talked at length about his previous life, his work as an agent of the Imperial throne, the hardships he'd overcome. His mood lifted somewhat. One day, when the slop drudge slammed shut the little hatch on the cell door after delivering the brown sludge that served as food, one of the nails was knocked aside. It was twisted slightly in the wood in such a way that one might be able to grasp it with one's fingers. Fathis's eyes glinted in the candlelight. He was weak now. In the depths of his depression, he had no will to exercise and keep in shape, deciding that not doing so might bring his inevitable end more quickly. Even bent out of place, the nail was difficult for his frail fingers to remove, but he persisted for hours, pulling, wiggling and cajoling it until eventually it finally came free. This little victory set a fire under him that he hadn't felt in a very long time. Anxiously, his mind raced as he attempted to recall the movements he'd made when the guards dragged him in here in the first place. He had to orientate himself. Once he had, he got to work on a task that he knew would take years to accomplish. With that small bent nail, he began to scratch and scrape at the stone wall. Each time the slop drudge came by, he would place his back to the corner where he worked, adjacent to the door, and the highest point in the uneven floor where his own waist did not pool. In this way, his caretaker was unaware of the work that was afoot. Decades passed without Fathis's knowledge, and all the while, he diligently carved away at the stone, eventually having to fashion tools from chips of flint, which he used to pry loose more nails from the door. The work continued. Outside the dungeon, The reign of Pelagius IV eventually came to an end, and he was succeeded by his son, Uriel VII. Under Pelagius, the empire had become more stable and united than it had been in many centuries, and in all that time, Fathis continued to work. Under Uriel, the empire expanded aggressively into the eastern provinces of Morrowind and Blackmarsh, but the emperor was eventually betrayed and imprisoned by his battle mage, Jaeger Tharn, in a period that would become known as the Imperial Simulacrum. While all this was going on, Fathis continued to work. Later, in High Rock, Emperor Uriel presided over the so-called Miracle of Peace, or Warp, in the west, and the empire's strength and prosperity continued to grow. In the east, in Morrowind, the island of Vardenfell was open to settlers, and the members of a strange cult known as the Sixth House carried out a series of high-profile assassinations. Meanwhile, under the earth, in blissful ignorance, Fathis diligently continued to work. Finally, on the first of last seed, 427, Fatha Sovan had carved a hole in his cell wall that he could squeeze through and begin digging through the soil beyond. The following morning, the guards came and dragged him from his cell. The Emperor's orders, they said, in response to his babbled questions. He laughed hysterically, even as the light of the sun seared his eyes, and even as he saw clearly his now wrinkled body and his hair that was once black turned to white. Fathis awakens from his dream with the sound of his own laughter still echoing around his head. He pulls back the covers of his bed and gingerly slides over until his feet touch the floor. He reaches over to his bedside table, takes his hackle low pipe, and creates a flame to light it with a snap of his fingers. It is the same ritual he observes every morning. As he puffs on his pipe, he glances around his room, lit by flickering candles, sparsely decorated and with no windows. Some things you get used to for life. He eases himself onto his feet and stretches with a groan. He notes that his back pain has been relieved somewhat of late, likely to do with the fact that he's finally gotten used to sleeping in a bed instead of on the floor. He dresses himself in a loose-fitting gown and heads towards the door. On his right, he passes his desk, covered in important papers and documents. Caius' decoded message from Cyrodiil, the notes provided by Zen Subani and Hulia, and the classified accounts he stole from the secret library of Vivek. He's been trying to make sense of it all, but there are still pieces of the puzzle missing. He takes his breakfast upstairs, a basic meal of crusty bread, mashed salt rice, and dried nixhound meat served with a goblet of mazte. They are presented to him by a skeletal servant wearing silk gloves, while two more stand guard in the antechamber beyond. There are two things he misses a great deal from Cyrodiil: red wine from Skingrad and fresh fruit from the orchards of Coral. The climate of Vardenfell does not permit the production of either of these things, and the local delicacies are poor replacements. When he's done, he heads downstairs. His lair of sorts has expanded a great deal in the weeks since the unfortunate business with Julan. After discovering that parts of the back wall of what was once his bedchamber were once doorways, he had his servants knock them down. Beyond, he discovered stairs, a small rear chamber, and further below, a large domed hall. If he had to guess, he would say that all of this was perhaps once an ancestral tomb that was taken over by the Mehrunes Dagon cultists, who saw fit to wall off the lower chambers, perhaps in superstitious fear of angry spirits. If there were any vengeful ghosts here, they are long gone by now, and the domed hall has been converted into a personal library. In another lifetime, Fathis had a library of his own in his imperial city Manse. Knowledge is power, as he is often fond of saying, and it is here that he will keep that knowledge. In the far corner, there is another false wall. What lies beyond it? He can only guess. Perhaps later he will find out, but for now, there is other work to be done. The rest of his morning is spent in the library, poring over Dwemer artifacts and texts. He considers it to be something of a hobby, and tries to make time for it when he can. For a few hours, he peers at ancient schematics and attempts to decipher pages from a mighty tome that he has decided is called Divine Metaphysics. Whenever a new reference is required, he communicates it to an ever-faithful servant and sits, waiting, puffing on his pipe, as the Revenant fetches the required book from the ranks of shelves. As he is waiting, he muses aloud that once an appropriate window opens up in his work, he simply must visit the ruins of Kemel Z on the mainland. Later, he spars for an hour with one of his guardian revenants, sometimes both of them, practicing his technique with the blade. Even in his advanced age, there are few men or mer alive who could equal Fathis in the art of knife fighting, but it will only stay that way if he continues to practice. Unfortunately, the Revenants prove little challenge, and another mental note is made to try and make some improvements to the necromantic process next time. It has been a while since he last spoke with Tragrilar. Sometimes he does pay a visit to the necromancer's grisly abode to make use of the facilities there. When he does, they often talk on matters magical and historical, both slightly mistrustful of the other, both careful not to share details of their current activities and their personal histories. After the sparring, Fathis retires to his room to pore over his notes and documents for the umpteenth time, still trying to see if he's missed something, a vital clue hidden somewhere, a line of prophecy misinterpreted. He makes very little progress. Dinner is served and is much the same as breakfast, but he has few complaints. To him, overindulgence is a foreign concept, a hindrance to his work. A fat man is harder to disguise and easier to remember. With his food finished, he goes to change his clothes. He picks out a pair of patched-up old trousers and a plain, faded tunic. He also retrieves a simple wooden cane from his wardrobe and a large pebble, which he slides into his shoe to effect a slight limp. He completes the ensemble with a minor charm of obfuscation, making it more difficult for onlookers without any magical talent of their own to place his face in a crowd. He leaves his secret chambers via the front door, itself also subject to a similar though more powerful charm, and emerges into the sewer system that makes up the underworks of Vivek's St. Olm's Canton. He makes his way to the nearby ladder, climbing it with ease, his cane clenched between his teeth. He emerges into the canal works and then makes his way up to the wasteworks, now adopting his withered old man persona. He passes many people, most of which he recognizes as locals. None of them pay him any attention, with only the Ordinators in their gleaming armor occasionally hazarding a glance his way, but never for very long. He limps down corridors and through doorways until eventually he emerges outside and makes his way to the western face of the canton, where he eventually finds what he's looking for: the sunset. For over a century, he was denied this simple pleasure, watching the sun droop in the sky as the world turns bright shades of orange, yellow, and pink. To the north, the mountains are a hazy blue, draped in mist. To the south, a flock of gulls perches atop Bar Dow, the floating moon, and ships come and go from the docks of Ebonheart. There is the faint sound of hymns being chanted in the halls of High Faeryn as the sacred time of dusk approaches. Once the sun dips below the horizon, Fathos makes his way home and to his bed. He reads some passages from a book on his bedside table entitled Ashland Hymns. It's a favorite of his. Then he settles down to sleep and waits for the dreams of his long-lost youth that continue to be his ever-present companion. Tonight, however, a stranger comes to haunt his nightmares, unwelcome and unbidden.
The gods and fates are cruel. I served you faithfully once, Lord Morrowind, and you repaid me with death. Come, lay down your weapons. It is not too late for my mercy. Together we shall speak for the law in the land, and shall drive the mongrel dogs of the Empire from Morrowind.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back at long last to Let's Play Morrowind Volume 3, where we rejoin Fatha Sovan, everybody's favourite assassin, guildmaster, in his hideout here underneath the city of Vivec, where he is awoken from a dream, a disturbing dream involving a tall figure in a golden mask, as I believe it is described in here. Yes, a tall figure in a golden mask spoke to me. The gods and fates are cruel. I served you faithfully once, Lord Nerevar, and you repaid me with death. Come, lay down your weapons. It's not too late for my mercy. Together we shall speak for the law and the land, and shall drive the mongrel dogs of the Empire from Morrowind. That last bit sounds very appealing, but nothing about the guy in the dream was very appealing. So, very interesting. Very interesting. I kind of wonder if it's got something to do with that right there. However, yes. Previously, at the end of Volume 2, folks, as Fathas takes a little walking tour of his abode here, Fathas discovered that the Emperor believes him to be the prophesied Nerevarine, the reincarnation of the ancient Dunmer warlord Nerevar Unduril. Upon learning this information, our trusty, well, not so trusty, servant and companion Julan discovered this and was not very pleased, and vowed that he would make life difficult for us upon finding out that Fathas is an Imperial spy. Admittedly, Fathas doesn't like the fact that he's an Imperial spy, but he doesn't really have much of a choice in the matter. Unfortunately, though, Julan made it very, very awkward, and of course, eventually we had to kill him. And, just to remove that little problem, that little thorn in our side, because there was nothing to be done about it. Julan's still here, of course. How do? He's guardian of the library these days. He doesn't talk nearly so much as he used to, and that suits Fathas just fine. Here's all our Dwemer stuff. This is the library. As you can see. It's got a lot of empty shelves at the moment, but they are going to fill up very quickly. Now that I've got the space to store books and things, Fathas is going to be acquiring an awful lot more of them. Some of them are still upstairs, but a lot of it's been moved down here. I think this is the magic stuff shelf. This is the sort of random fictional stories shelf. This is the religion shelf, which, as you can see, is already quite populated. A lot of it is the 36 Lessons of Vivec. But it's just general religion stuff. But yes. So yeah, as you can see, this place has expanded a bit. I like to think this was always here. We just knocked down a few walls and discovered that lower part of the shrine down there. More bookshelves and things up here. And the main area, which you're well familiar with, including some new servants. This lesser Khajiit Revenant here, who I like to affectionately call Mittens. Mittens is the guy who sticks around and guards the place while we're not here, because Mittens, unfortunately, being a Khajiit Revenant, can't really take him around in public, because I'm not able to cover his face or his feet, because he's a Khajiit. Bill, on the other hand, here, this is Bill, he's looking a bit different to when you last saw him. As you can see, I've equipped him with medium armor, because that's what he's skilled with, and I've given him a weapon he's skilled with too. I think he's got my glass claymore that heals you when you hit someone with it, which is useful for a follower. And as you can see, he's completely covered, closed helmet, gloves, boots, all the rest of it. You can't tell just by looking at him that he's a skeleton under there, and that suits us just fine, because that means I can take Bill with me out in public, and nobody will be any other wiser. As you can see, we've still got some stuff on this shelf here, which will be sorted away at a later date. Our inventory is still full of stuff, as you can see. We have many, many scrolls. We have alchemy ingredients. A lot of stuff I need to sell. Diamonds and rubies and things like that. Plenty of potions, although I think I need to pick up some more magica potions if I can. We have our Morag-Tong helm, which I'm now going to put on, as well as the cephalopod helm, gold brand, Mithras' stanchion, which is the staff thing that Mithras gave us, which I keep around mostly because it has feather 100 points on self. So if I ever get over encumbered, I can quickly equip the stanchion and get myself out of bother. So we also have Soul Splitter, which is the knife, the magic knife we have to use to create more revenants with. And of course all our usual trinkets and doodads, essentially, including the very, very always useful Robes of Alteration, which allow us to recover magicka without resting. We also have a useful little feature in here. As you can see, this is the desk, which has got a lot of the important notes and stuff on, like the decoded package, Battle of Red Mountain, Strange Letter, inventory books, directions to Kai's Cosades, mission to Vivek, all that kind of stuff is on here, including this very, very, very nice Daedric letter opener there. But also over here we've got, well, the collection of pointy shoes. Must have the collection of pointy shoes. We also have, well, Julan's telepathy ring, which we will be no longer requiring, and a suspicious coin, which if we touch it, will teleport us, and here's its counterpart at the other end, to the Thanatos Temple, which is where Tragrilar lives. Hello, Tragrilar, just dropping by. And the Thanatos Temple, of course, is where we create revenants and things with Tragrilar's help, using that big, evil-looking cauldron over there. And yes, as you saw, I've made a couple of new revenants lately. So that's useful, because, of course, the Thanatos Temple is located out in the absolute middle of nowhere. It is located, if I recall, somewhere out here in the Molagamur region. Absolute middle of nowhere, very difficult to actually get to. So we have enchanted a mystical coin, a pair of mystical coins, in fact, with a teleportation charm, which allows us to go this way and that. Very nice. As you can see, Mittens has some issues that he's working through right now. Mostly that he doesn't have any ankle bones, or shins for that matter, at all. It's a pair of floating feet right now. It's not an ideal state of affairs, but on the other hand, his head is a skull within a skull, which is pretty cool. Like, if anyone comes wandering in here while I'm away and they see Mittens here waiting for them, they're probably going to cack themselves and run away. And even if they don't, Mittens is quite an accomplished fighter as well. He's got relatively good stats. Instructions? Skills. Short blade 54. Yep. Light armor 54. He's pretty good. He's pretty good. Right now he is equipped with a few old light armor bits I had, like these glass braces, Daedric hide cuirass, Daedric hide boots, so on and so forth, the Bloodworm helm, and he has the glass jink blade, and a Daedric short sword, and a Daedric dagger. He can use whichever one he feels is the best. So he is well equipped to defend this place in Fathas' absence, which is excellent. However, we have things to do. Fathas has been kind of sitting on his arse mostly recently. For the last few weeks or so, he's been reading his books, going through his notes, rereading the decoded package a few times, I think. Going through the process of making a few more skeletal guardians for this place. And, of course, the expansion to his lair in the first place as well. Further expansion may be occurring in the future, we'll have to see, because if you look over here, there is another sort of false wall here, which we might be able to knock through and see what's beyond that. But for now, it shall remain a mystery, because we have other work to be getting on with. Namely, one is that we need to get back to Master Arian, our patron within Great House Telvanni, because he tasked us with learning a set number of spells. Yes, he did. The basic wizard spells. Recall, a spell of flying, and a spell of fire damage. Levitate, Great Levitate, Wild Levitate. Fire damage, use just Fireball, Greater Fireball, or Firestorm. Spells you such yourself will not be sufficient. It is unclear to me whether I have to get those specific named ones or just any bought fire damage spell will do, because we do have Flame Bolt, for example, here, which might do the trick. However, I'm going to visit the Mages Guilds across Vardenfell and see if I can find what I'm after. As for Levitate, we do have that, and we do also have Recall. Recall, currently, the mark for it is set here, our hideout. So if I recall, it will take me back here. Worth noting, though, actually, if I do recall to get out of somewhere, our minions here will not actually follow us. They're not able to do that. They can follow me via the teleporting coin, usefully enough, but they can't follow me through a Divine Intervention or CV Intervention or a Recall spell. So, right now I don't actually need any of them coming with me. We're not going anywhere where we're going to need the help, I don't think, right now. We're mostly just going to run around and look for these spells. I don't recall if... Aha, yes. Now, here we go. Caius also tasked us with visiting the Ursulaku camp in the Ashlands, way far to the north, to speak with the heads of the Nerevarine cult, Sulmatul and Nibani Mesa. When we do this, make this expedition north to... all the way up there, look, deep in uncharted territory for us. We've not been around up here at all. When we do that, I may bring Bill with me to help carry my things and aid me and stuff like that. Although it's a tricky thing, because if the Ashlanders somehow realize that he's an undead revenant, my chances of actually being able to, well, get out alive or even speak to them again on friendly terms is virtually nil. So I think Fathis, at least, is undecided at this present moment whether or not he wants to take Bill here with him on that expedition to see the Ashlanders, because on the one hand, it would be very helpful to have a skeletal servant with him. On the other hand, if he's discovered, that's it. His chances of being able to get any useful information out of the Ashlanders is gone at that point. So, we shall see. But for now, we need to work on getting those spells. And, as I said, well, let's go visit the Mages Guild. And we'll see if we can find Fireball, or Greater Fireball, or Firestorm. One of those three that are listed. And if I can't, then, well, we'll just sort of go back to Master Arian with Flame Bolt and hope for the best. Fathis sniffs the sea air that greets him as he exits the canton. It's quiet up here, as per usual. There's rarely much foot traffic around Vivec this time of the morning, unless it's a holy day, during which the patrons of the Tribunal Temple will leave their homes to worship at High Fane. In previous years, he's been told the city was much busier, being a particularly popular pilgrimage site. But since the start of the Blight, pilgrims to Vardenfell have become far less common, as the entire island has been quarantined to most travellers. Nowadays, the most you will typically see is the grim death masks of the Ordinators making lonely patrols around the different tiers of the cantons. Fathis decides to use a quick levitation spell to make his way across to the foreign quarter. the only canton not connected to the others via high bridges, owing to its non-standard construction. In the rest of the Empire, and technically here too, levitation magic has been outlawed for years, but the Dunmer authorities have very little interest in upholding that particular law, resistant as they are to all kinds of imperial influence. Fathas can levitate from canton to canton in broad daylight, and he knows that nobody will care. He's on his way to the Mages Guild, an institution he doesn't much care for, but recognizes the usefulness of. On the one hand, it's a source of instant teleportation to the different cities across Morrowind, and a place where spells and spellmaking can be easily accessed. On the other hand, though, he's quite sure that many members of the Mages Guild probably report back to people like Caius and the Blades, keeping an eye on his movements. Not to mention, making frequent use of the Mages Guild services, and even being an entry-level member probably raises eyebrows among members of his patron house, Telvanni.
Is there something you need?
Yes, madam. I require a spell. Very specific one. Oh, okay. I'm not high enough rank to get a spell from you. Oh, you really don't like me. I can't remember exactly what it was I did to annoy that woman, but it was something significant, clearly. That's the Archmage Trebonius. Do you have anything for me? No, you don't. Okay, You're clearly an alchemist. What about you? Spells? No, nothing we're looking for, unfortunately. Alright, well, let's try somewhere else. Hello, Fatha Sovan. Looking for transport to another guild hall. By the way, you aren't carrying any bottles or plates, are you? What? No, bottles and plates do not adversely affect teleportation. I just have to complete this stupid inventory. Trebonius' idea of an important task. Did he give you any duties? Oh, that's not so bad, I guess. He asked me to make an inventory of all the plates and bottles in Vardenfell. I am never going to get it done in time. Yes, Trebonius seems to be quite eccentric indeed. Even by Fathas' standards. Okay, let's try Balmora. Somebody around here's got to have Fireball available. And there's plenty of Telvanni mages that could sell spells, but they're not quite so easy to access. Oh, I don't want training. No. Spells. Fire shield. Damn. We can't make one ourselves either. That won't be accepted.
You have my attention.
Firebite, frostbite, shock poison. Blast. I think you just sell restoration stuff, don't you? Yeah. Okay. That's no good. Take me elsewhere. Which, I mean, elsewhere other than here, not elsewhere itself. Totally different thing. Alderun. I believe there's a guy who sells spells upstairs. Is it you? You do, but not the ones I'm after. What about you, sir? Greater Fireball. Hurrah. And now, we can finally return to Master Arian and explain that we'd finally learned these spells. Oh, and I've just remembered, I can be using these magic circles instead of actually paying for transit instead. Whoops. Never mind. Let's go to Sadrith Mora. Which will take us, of course, to Wolverine Hall, and then through this confusing layout. back out here. Look at the lighthouse over there. Back to here, and from here we can get to Voss relatively quickly and easily. As he makes his way through Sadrith Mora, Fathis observes something about the town's layout. There is no urban planning whatsoever. In fact, to call it urban would itself not feel quite correct. There are no side streets and dark alleyways, no bridges, hidden courtyards, and most concerningly of all, there are no sewers either. All these things, he realizes, must make petty crime in Sadrith Mora virtually impossible to pull off. That is, if you are willing to even run the risk of upsetting the mage lords in the first place. He glances up at Tel Naga, the great mushroom tower that looms over the whole city, and reminds himself that even now he must still tread carefully with the Telvanni. The boat trip up to Voss is not a long one, but it does require switching vessels at Tel Mora just across the bay, so a smaller one can take him to the dock down the hill from the ancient Velothi farming town. By the time he arrives, it is very early morning, but luckily, Master Arian, like many wizards, keeps very unsociable hours, so a visit will not be out of the question. In fact, Fathis quietly suspects that many of the Telvanni Magisters do not sleep at all. It would be very typical of them to view it as something of a waste of valuable time, and might also explain why so many of them seem positively unhinged on the best of days. He recalls his visit to Mistress Thorana some months ago, and the bloodbath it regrettably ended in. If possible, that sort of thing should be avoided in future, he decides. Although he's also fairly certain that by killing the mistress, he managed to remove a thorn from his side. Alright, here we are in Tel Voss. The weather's taken a turn for the worse, isn't it? Right, up we go. Quite keen to get inside now. There we go. Float on through here. Master Arian, have you learned the rudimentary wizard spells? You have learned the rudimentary spells. I am proud to be your patron. For your next lesson, please take this book on war magic by the legendary Zurin Arctus. Zurin Arctus, eh? I'm your patron. Advancement? Requirements. We need to increase our stats in order to get promoted again. For now, though, chores. One of our fellow Telvanni, Milin Faram, is being assaulted by members of House Lalu at Ordinator. It is on Azira's coast, west of the shrine to Azira and south of the old Dwemer ruins of Nishurdams. I will mark these ruins on your map. Go there and speak with Milin Faram, who is under attack by forces of House Lalu. He is probably making his last stand at the top of his tower. Right, yeah, we can't muck about then. This is what we're going to do right away immediately, by the sounds of it. We are the reinforcements, apparently. So, the question is, where in the world is Milin Faram? Okay, Nishurdams is there. It is west of the Shrine of Azira and south of the old Dwemer ruins of Nishurdams. So it's down here, basically. Which means we should probably get to Molag Ma in order to get there quickly. Interestingly, there is an Ashlander camp south of Morrowind, with which we have previous history. We actually helped set it up, in fact. Might be a good idea to go back and see how they're doing. They may have even had something for us to do, and I've just forgotten about it. Fathis curses the rain. Were it not for this downpour, he would probably read some of the new book on his way back to the docks, and on the boat out of here. Zurin Arctus, he recalls, was Tiber Septim's imperial battle mage, responsible for controlling the colossal Dwemer automaton known as Numidium, with which Tiber Septim conquered Tamriel. Arctus turned against his emperor eventually when he saw the abuse with which Tiber Septim was using the colossal war machine and destroyed it. However, he himself perished in the attempt. According to some, he did not actually die, however, and the reasons for this are disputed. A common account is that the Numidium was powered by a device called the Mantella, a crystal containing Zurin Arctus' own soul, and when Numidium was destroyed, it was cast into Aetherius, turning him into the undead being known as the Underking. Others, however, claim that the Underking was really High King Wulfharth of Skyrim, a powerful undead being from the First Era, and it was his soul that was trapped in the Mantella instead. When Numidium was destroyed, Tiber Septim claimed that his imperial battle mage tried to assassinate him, hushing up the fact that he was allegedly tricked by the Underking. Fathis is more partial to the latter version of events, taking a dim view as he does of the Septim Emperors, though he could certainly never claim that he knew the full truth of the matter. As for the book, it was penned by Zurin Arctus himself, although later editions like this one also contain commentaries by other scholars of the art of war magic from over the years. At the very least, it is a prime candidate to be added to his new dedicated library shelf for all things relating to magic. After another voyage down from Voss, a teleportation to Vivec, and a Siltstrider ride to Morrowind, which takes an entire day in total, Fathis once again finds himself upon the ash-blasted slopes of the Molag Amur. Okay, so here we are in Morrowind, and the weather is obviously quite awful. Nashurdams is all the way over there somewhere. So that will be where we're headed. However, first, I am going to review what it is the Ashlanders south of Morrowind wanted us to do, and go visit them first if necessary. But for now, I think we want somewhere to wait out this storm, really, for the most part. Fathis decides that it's probably worth visiting the Ashlanders at the Couchtabab camp again, and continuing to aid them in their endeavours. They already owe him quite a debt, as it was his persuasive words in the ears of Molagmar's temple authorities that allowed them to settle in the first place. They are outcasts from the Arabanimsun tribe, a particularly warlike clan of Ashlanders that Fathis has encountered before. He wasn't very impressed with them. With the looming trip north to the Ashlands to seek out the leaders of the Nerevarine cult, he makes the decision that, on the whole, it's probably best if he has Ashlander friends that will speak well of him and vouch for his character to the other tribes, if that becomes necessary. Okay, well, here we are at St. Velot's Hostel, up here on the top level of Morrowind. I don't believe we can rent beds here, but I don't know if we need to. We might just be able to sleep here anyway. I believe this place might be run by the temple, so it does say owned, doesn't it? Excuse me.
Anytime you're ready. Just don't keep me waiting.
Where did you get that Duke's Guard Silver Cuirass, my friend? Where on earth? Well, there's plenty of beds here, and there should be a way, you would think, of actually securing one to sleep here. or if necessary, or we mostly just want to wait for the Blightstorm to stop.
Boots are ruined.
And so that, I think, is what we're going to do. Okay, the storm has died down quite significantly, and it's on its way out. On the following morning, after spending the night at the hostel. So, now, we have things to do. Now, I believe in here somewhere should be what we're looking for if we go back far enough. Anyway, this is a lot of the Tamriel Rebuilt stuff. This is all when Julan went a bit mad and went up Red Mountain. Yep. Moranian Rune. Was it even further back than that? Kaushtababi tribe. Here we go. Yeah, we cleared out the Daedric Shrine for them. Would use the nearby egg mine as a source of food and trade, except it is infested with the blight. Kanit Neladon asked me to cure the Kwama Queen. Okay. Did I do that? Ibn asked me, told me to, that her new tribe requires an ancestor cult. Acquire the remains of their ancestors in order to establish a Kaushtababi ancestral cult. Return the remains of her husband Adibel's ancestors that were stolen by the outcast Ashlanders of Subitbale camp. Their remains are probably kept in an urn near their yurt. I need to find them and return all the remains to Ibn Amu. Northeast of the Arabanimsum camp along the coast. That is kind of the area we're going to-ish. It's in the same neighborhood. Same postcode, at least. Tribe needs a healer, and he needs a wife. A Velo, the apprentice healer at the Arabanimsum camp, intended to join him, but was tending her sister's children when the others left. Okay, so did I actually... It was a long time ago. Did we actually get around to doing those quests? I don't honestly remember. Yeah, this is about the point where we went into the mainland. And that was, well, we were there for quite some time, weren't we? Then we returned. We spoke to Hasur Zain Subani. We became Master Arian's patron, or he became our patron. And that's about as far as we got. So these issues still need to be dealt with then. So, gotta go to the Arabanimson camp to speak with this Avilo woman here. And we need to go to the egg mine to heal the Kwama Queen of the Blight. And we need to rescue her husband's remains. Which is in the same area as well. Okay. Right. Quite the to-do list, then. But no sense in waiting around. We might as well jump to it. The only question I have... Arian's Blight Cure. Cure Blight Disease in 2 feet on target. Well, that is jolly useful, isn't it? I believe he gave us that to possibly heal a slightly different Qualma Queen and a slightly different egg mine. I don't really remember. But we have that at our disposal, so we can go do that now. Heal that Qualma Queen, which is down here to the south. Other side of these hills, I believe. Getting blown back slightly by the wind there, I think. Right. So whereabouts is it? Eritamus Cinnamum Egg Mine. Directly south of the camp over the hills. So over here, past this.
I can tell.
Good day, everyone. I've returned. I've been very, very busy. I'll tell you all about it later. Ah. Hello. Ow. Okay, you're a problem, aren't you? Oh, you can go away. Alright, you're a problem, aren't you? Okay. I thought I destroyed all the Daedra at this place. Apparently, I was very much mistaken. Alright, I think he's used up all his magicka now. Should make this a very good time for me to do this. A Storm Atronach. You know what? It probably would have been a very good idea to Soul Trap either the Soul Atronach, the Storm Atronach, or the Winged Twilight. Now I think about it, I think I probably could have got a Grand Soul out of either of them. Although I'm not sure if I actually have any Grand Soul gems on me right now. In fact, I don't think I do. So I guess no worries. But that's something to bear in mind in future. Daedric Ruins, good place to go to get Grand Souls. When necessary. Okay. This looks like... Hey, look there, you can see the mainland over there. Some Dwemer Ruins. Possibly Tel Brenora or Tel Fear down there. Yeah, it's Tel Brenora. Nice view from up here. Now then. Where is this egg mine? Ah, that's the one over there, I think. Just gotta figure out what wants us dead first. You, Mr. Guap. No. My friend, just no. Apparently that's not all, but whatever the other thing is, it doesn't seem to be able to keep up with me. Okay. Journal from update blighted. I killed a blighted rat in the egg mine. Is that puny little thing the cause of the blight here? The Kashtababi could have taken care of this themselves. They probably could have. And I think this displeases Fatha somewhat. But no matter. We're here now. Might as well make sure the job is done properly. Interesting. Is this the way we need to go? Ah. A mighty Kwama warrior. It's also blighted, actually. Not something we want to take too lightly. They can be lethal. And this would be the blighted Kwama Queen, I believe. Alright. Ah. Gonna have to take another potion, aren't I? It's either that or use the Robe of Restoration or Robe of Alteration, but that takes ages, so... Oh dear. Fathis, you need to improve your restoration magic, dude. It frequently becomes a problem in situations like this. There we go. I've cured the Kwama Queen of the Blight. That was easy enough. I should form Kennet. Nail the dawn of my success. However, what on earth? Right. Okay. Okay, lend a hand. Thank you. An Ascended Sleeper. It was not as simple as I thought. An Ascended Sleeper attacked me in the egg mine. It may have been lurking here, spreading its pestilence for some time. Perhaps it was making a new lair for others. Whatever its plans were, they are undone. They are. From this we take some ash salts and a 6th house amulet. Worth quite a bit of money. Not worth wearing, though. There's no good reason to wear that thing. Right, thank you, Flame Atronak. You served me reasonably well. However, our work here is done. Summoned creatures. Fathis considers himself relatively adept in the school of conjuration, but frequently the Daedric allies he summons prove to be more trouble than they're worth, or of no use at all. The Ascended Sleeper was no easy foe, and while Fathis is by no means squeamish, the thought of the otherworldly creature that was once a man just like him sends shivers down his spine. It's also a little concerning that a powerful agent of the 6th House cult was able to operate so freely all the way down here in the southern tip of Ardenfell. How many other caves full of these monstrosities are there down here in the civilized south? He certainly never encountered any on the mainland, at least. Fathis decides to return to the camp directly, mostly in the hopes that some sort of tangible reward might be offered. Although by the time he arrives, he can't help but notice that his skin has started to itch. He's sweating more than normal, and he's beginning to feel somewhat nauseous. Looks like we've got a blight disease. That's not very good, is it? Do I have a potion that can get rid of that? Ah. We have one. There we go. Yes, okay, here we go. The Queen has been cured of the Blight. We did not have the magics to do this, so I and the whole tribe thank you. My wife Zaba has returned from Suran to run the egg mine for the tribe. You are welcome to enter our yurt, so she may thank you as well. If you have finished helping the others in the Kaushtababi tribe, you should tell Ashkan Adibel. You will have your reward. We haven't finished helping the others right now, actually. Might as well say hello to Zaba. I worked as an egg miner in an egg mine near Suran for the settled people of House Halalu. I learned how to best harvest the eggs so the colony can still grow, how to make the Kwama not see me as an enemy, and many other things from them. Kaushtababi tribe will have a good source of food and items to trade for other needed goods. I shall travel to the mines soon. Thank you for helping us. Very good. I was curious to see if there was some sort of reward there, but I guess not. Alright, so the rest of their tasks are going to take us up here to the Rabaninsum camp, and then slightly beyond it too, to find that yurt where the ashes of that woman's husband are kept. But first, I think we need to head east to over here, where Ordinator hopefully will be found, the place that is currently under siege, and hopefully we won't have arrived too late. We didn't waste too much time here, so may have some explaining to do. That could in fact be it right over there, now that I think about it. That looks like a likely candidate. But yes, if we arrive there and the Halali have already taken over the place and Faeryn is dead, we may have some explaining to do.